G'day, g'day, wherever you are in this wonderful multiverse of ours. You're here on Mastering Music, Mastering Life. I'm Tony Jack, the Bear Man, coming to you from Deluxe Mastering Australia, the supposedly still world's most livable city. And I am absolutely delighted after, I think it's taken 2 years to get this fella on, but all the way from Austin, Texas, the United States of America, Mr. Jerry Tubb from Terra Nova Mastering. Jerry, such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining me, mate.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to be here. Yeah, it's great to finally do this. We've been talking about this for a while, so this is a good day.
Yeah, I'm hopefully trying to get through every one of the Austin Massive, because there's quite a few mastering houses in town in Austin, isn't there? Including Steve Burson and of course Chris Athens.
Yeah, Chris moved down here a few years ago with his lovely wife, and I think they have 2 children now. Good people.
Absolutely. And Steve Burson, of course, is another New York native. I think he was originally Brooklyn, and now he's moved down to Austin as well. So it's a great town. Austin's a great music town, isn't it, my friend? Great, steeped in musical history.
Yeah, Austin's been a music town for a long time. It's especially in the 70s, it came to prominence, with the cosmic cowboy thing and the hippie movement. And, when Willie Nelson moved here, and all of a sudden the hippies and the cowboys were showing up at the same concerts at the Armadillo World headquarters. And that kind of, sort of thing got going. And it's like they would all drink beer and smoke something together and be buddies instead of adversaries.
Yeah, that's a good way of being.
Yeah. There's some lessons for the rest of the world in that, I think.
Absolutely. We'll get into that a little bit. We'll get into that aspect of the conversation a little bit later on. But so tell us, for those of you who don't know you, Jerry, tell us a little bit about Terra Nova Mastering and yourself, and how you got to be in Austin, Texas. And I understand you're into your 30th year of business operations, so congratulations on that. That's a great achievement, my friend.
Thank you, sir. We just started our 30th year. Let me shut this computer down here. Lower the noise floor in here a little bit. So back in the 80s, the digital thing was going, it's in its early days, and I started hearing about DSP processing, and a friend of mine was out in LA, and he was doing posts, and started using a digital workstation, and I got fascinated with that. And I was already, way into Macintosh computers. I never PC, but so I'm Apple Mac guy. And then studio work and music, and it all kind of went, it's like, to get philosophical, the universe said, do this. So I did. So I set up a digital editing suite here in Austin back in 1990, and hit the ground running. Next thing you know, I was working with Willie Nelson and all these great outlaw cowboy singers and all these great rock bands. And I've been going all through the 90s. I did like 2 records a day with almost no time off.
Tell us, I'm sure a lot of people would love to know, what was the experience like working with Willie Nelson? What's he like as a character, and what was it like working alongside him?
He's usually out on the road. He was doing over 200 dates a year. He and B.B. King and a few others were road dogs. So he didn't often come to the sessions, but one of his people would come, hang out, and then it finally got where he just send stuff over.
Did you actually get a chance to rub shoulders with him at any stage, in or outside the studio?
Oh, absolutely. He's like a guru. He's like meeting the Dalai Lama or Maharishi or whoever you're into. He's that kind of man. He's got this deep compassion in his eyes. He's a heavy soul.
Yeah, you get that impression.
Full of love for his fans too.
Totally.
Giant family. I've worked with everyone in his family. 2 of his daughters, two of his sons, is a granddaughter and a grandson, and a great-grandchild. I've worked on records with all those people on it. So
Wow.
he's like the benevolent godfather here.
Wow. Yeah, he's certainly
And,
got
and,
us.
and maybe, and I could go on about Willie for a long time, maybe the most famous guitar sound on the planet. If you think about it, you hear Willie play Trigger, do that little chromatic walk up, and you go, that's Willie Nelson playing Trigger.
Right. Well, you're a very lucky man to have worked with the likes of him, my friend. I go to my grave happy just having that and that alone on my CV. Willie Nelson, done. I'm out of here.
I did have to pinch myself. They sent over a DAT tape one time. It was him and Patsy Cline, a copy of an analog tape that had disappeared, and the only one that existed was on a DAT tape, and it gotten all crumpled up in the DAT machine. You remember how that used to happen? So I got to repair that thing. I had to like iron out the tape and splice it and get it to play, transfer it into my workstation and send it back.
Hey, whoa. Hang on. Just let me rewind back just for a second. You actually spliced the DAT tape.
Yeah. I got where I could take those things apart.
Damn.
And rub it until it would flatten out the wrinkles. And then I would use cassette splicing tape on the backing. Yeah.
Jesus.
I haven't done this in a few years, but yeah, I got pretty good at fixing DAT tapes.
That's next level shit, my friend.
Well, it was challenging, but we got there.
No, a crumpled DAT in my world, mate, went straight into the waste. That was it. Done. See you later. Next.
Well, it was the only copy. It was the only copy.
And it came up okay.
Yeah, that should have been 8mm instead of 4mm. The tape was too flimsy. That's why when the Master Link came in, it blew it out of the water.
Wow. Yeah.
We've
seen a lot of stuff over the years, my friend. It's interesting when I talk to a lot of kids, and they look at you really strange when you tell them that back in the day, a CD burner was about $5,000, and the discs are $25 a piece. And when USB sticks, which were known as thumb drives back then, I think the Mac Daddy of them all in the first generation of them was like 256 meg. And the first external hard drive I ever got was 1 gig SCSI drive. It was about $2,500. This is 1995, 96. And people spin out when you tell them stories like that. That's what it was like.
Yeah, I gave $4,000 for a 1 gig. It was a full height Hewlett Packard, and it sounded like a truck idling.
Yeah.
And it was slow as Christmas. You could hit, copy, a big file and go to dinner and come back, and it was either finishing up or it was crashed. It had crashed.
Well, I remember when I got my first 1 gig external hard drive, I said, I'm never going to fill this sucker up.
What am I going to do with all this space? It's kind of like in the old days when you got 16 tracks or even 8 tracks. You go, what am I going to do with all these tracks?
Even remember Pro Tools, my first Pro Tools rig was, remember when Pro Tools, well, you and I both started off with Sound Tools, right? There's a 2-track editing system, and then that became Sound Designer, and then from there, and even before Pro Tools, there was Deck and Edit. There was the two bits of software that merged together. Then came Pro Tools in a 4-channel, which expanded to 16 4-channel interfaces, right, to create a maximum 16-track situation. And it just kind of exponentially obviously grew from there. And now we're running 16 million tracks of 192K on our phone these days, Jerry. It's just unbelievable how fast it's gone.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I could wax nostalgic about the early days forever, but I touch on it once in a while, and then I have to let it go. Yeah, because
it's good fun.
I'm living in the present.
Totally,
I've got the very latest version of Pro Tools, and I've still got a legacy rig that I keep around with Sound Designer on it for reviving archives from the 90s, which once in a while I still have to use.
Wow.
So I've got these deep archives, just thousands and thousands and thousands of projects that I've worked on. And once in a while, somebody needs some of that stuff.
That's extraordinary. I don't think I've had anyone in 2019 AD come to me that wanted to recover anything from the 90s. And if they did, I'm afraid they'd be fucked because there's nothing I could do about it. I still have a lot of, I still got a lot of CDRs, you know, that I've got in storage. I'm absolutely gobsmacked as to how they've actually managed to keep data on there. I'm talking about, you know, discs from, you know, from 96, sure. 95, 96.
Yeah. I've got one that I ran through Plex Tools the other day and it passed from 96, a master that I've kept in my archive cabinet.
Now, so Jerry, you got a new facility that you moved into. So what happened? You were running out of the old building and now you're in the new building.
Yeah,
and
we were in this, go ahead.
No, so tell us about the journey from into the new place. So what instigated that and how things been since you've moved into the new joint?
Yeah, we kept expanding, you know, with the growth curve of mastering. I kept expanding, you know, every few years I'd get, you know, go to a bigger space. Then I finally landed in this, Terra Nova landed in this 3,000 square foot space with 2 rooms, a bunch of offices and a kitchen and separate restrooms and a lounge. And it's very much like your place. And then, you know, kind of like the thing that happened with Sterling, you know, the real estate thing just went crazy here in Austin.
Yeah.
To where the overhead was just insane. And so I thought, well, I had an offer to move out in the country to this beautiful photography studio that's not being used. And it's a giant 25 by 30 something room with 16-foot ceiling. And I thought, yes, time to move. And of course, anytime you've been in a place like we were for 17 years, you accumulate a literal mountain of stuff.
Oh yeah.
It was unbelievable, you know, all the stuff that you have to sort out and move and back. It's crazy. So I had to get a warehouse to put a bunch of stuff in. But the new place, my big Dunleavys sound the best I've ever heard them in here.
Awesome.
It sounds better than the Studio A I was in for 17 years. The low end breathes a little better. So I'm happy camper.
You know, I think people that are starting out wanting to do their own mastering room, they'd be surprised actually how good results they can get in, you know, a room with the right dimensions and right treatment. The whole, it's not mandatory now to build yourself a floating room or to have it, you know, done by the most expensive acoustician. You know, there's so much information online now and good acousticians around that can come around and help people treat rooms, you know, that you would look at on the surface and go, I don't think this could work. It actually work really well and produce some really great results, Jerry. And you're just living proof of it right there. What you got going on?
True. Yeah. I think that if the room is big enough, it'll handle a lot, you know. Like you can see, I've got just some acoustic panels leaned up against the wall here.
Yeah.
And very little else.
Yeah. I think once you get to know once you know your equipment and you got a good workflow happening and you understand the room and the anomalies and how to compensate, so long as at the end of the day, so long as the stuff sounds good when it goes out the door and it translates well, that's the bottom line. That's all that really counts, right?
There you go. That's very true. And your brain, you know, anytime you move to a new room, it takes a while to adjust.
Yeah.
At first you're like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And then over a few days, you adjust and you learn the room and you learn how the speakers respond to the room. And no, you could, if you've got some headphones you've been using for a while that you can use as a reference point, that can help as well. Which was my case. So
how long have you been set up in the new space now for?
Well, let's see, August, September, October, almost 3 months in the new space. And I've gone to online only.
Yep, nothing wrong with that.
Our original philosophy was attended sessions. come hang out. You know, Austin's a very touchy-feely kind of place, and people would want to come hang out and see the new technology and just kind of look over my shoulder and say, "What are you doing now? What's that button do?" And or just sit back and enjoy the process. You know, just people would say, "This is the best I'm going to ever hear it."
Yeah, it's a great experience for people to come into the room. And if you are in a city that is easily accessible, look, I'm a great fan of the attended session as well. But in the current world of international trade and the internet, obviously not every session is local, can't be locally attended to. So, you know, the idea of doing things more and more online, particularly if you are in a more remote area, I mean, that's the way of the future. That's the way it's going. And you know, you've got Skype, you can talk to people, you can still have the communication with your clients where you can, you know, you can get your brief, you can talk about what they want to get done. You can still do the same stuff and still be just as productive and still foster the relationships as you normally would, just in the virtual world. But again, at the end of the day, end result, man, it's all about the end result. You know, if you get a good master, the client's happy.
The traffic in Austin has gotten so bad, it's kind of gridlock.
Yeah.
That people wouldn't come to sessions anymore because they didn't want to fight the traffic. They would just say, you know, we've got this long relationship working with you. I'm just going to send it to you. You know what I want. Do your thing. Send it back. You know, and if they had tweaks, I would do it like, which was pretty rare actually. Not too many tweaks. I did one yesterday. I did a tweak on one song. The guy said, you know, I felt like we lost a little bit of punch in the kick drum. And he loves giant kick drum.
Right.
And so I said, okay, I'll eased up on the compression a little bit, send him another version, and now he's a happy camper.
Yeah.
So, but that was one song out of like 17, you know.
That's a pretty good strike rate.
Yeah. But you know, he's a long time client, and so I know what he wants. And
that's the thing, isn't it? It's this is definitely a people business, and over time, as you get to know you get to know your clients, and you know what they want, and after a while, it's almost unspoken. You know what's required, unless there's a specific request because they're doing something a little bit different, or they're trying to experiment. Or you know, I had a client yesterday that I worked with as many years. He's a blues artist named Mike Orrington, and he's doing an album, but this time he's using beats and electronic. So he's really getting very experimental. So yesterday we had to sit down and have a chat about how we're going to approach it and what he wanted, because it was very different to what he'd done before. But other than that, you know, that it just would have been a job where he'd send it in and leave it with me, because he lives 4 hours away from here. So he loves coming in for the experience of just hanging out and having a good time. But for a lot of people these days that are doing just singles or maybe small EPs, sometimes the travel, the inconvenience isn't worth it. So.
Well, I did a 21 song compilation last week, and just sent the master off, and there were no recalls on that. They loved everything. And then the couple of weeks before, that was for KUTX radio, and then for Austin City Limits radio, I did a almost 40 song compilation, and there's like Jade Bird, this wonderful young singer on there, and all these other amazing people. And you just kind of get in a groove with somebody where you understand what they're looking for, and what they're going to want to hear, and their listeners are going to want to hear.
Yeah, it's interesting you touch on the subject of compilations, because one thing I tell young kids who want to get into mastering as a good way of training their ears is just to kind of make their own compilations, because if you can make 10 tracks sit together and make sense as an album, if you will, so that it flows well, each song still has its characteristics and sounds good within itself, and maintains the integrity of its mix, but yet when it goes to the next song, it flows and it makes sense, and you're not sitting there wanting to turn up the level or turn it down or adjust the tone or anything like that. That is really good.
Oh, the density. Yeah. You know, like one's a little light acoustic thing, and then the next one's a heavy beat thing, and you got to have it where it'll flow.
Yeah, it's got to work, and that's a skill. And I tell kids, if you want to get good at this and you're starting out, just make all different compilations, you know, even if you have to grab old shit from the 70s and 80s, you know, which have headroom, so you got room to work if you want to get them louder. And because they're already pretty well mixed, so they're not going to have issues with the mix. It's just the practice of getting tonality right, dynamic integrity, consistency, all that kind of stuff. It's the best ear training, and it's going to set them up really well when it comes then to getting the, you know, outside recordings in the real world later on.
Yeah, both those compilations I mentioned, they're both all live recordings, which adds an extra level of difficulty to it. But you know, it's you get your chops, you know, on live recordings as well.
Oh, no,
because you got to dive in deep. You know, it's not like some perfect mix. You're going in there deep sea diving sometimes. You know,
and especially if they're coming from different recordings, and it's got to sound like it's one gig, if you know what I mean, one continuous gig.
Yeah,
that's more Jedi training right there for you.
I like it. Yeah. Obi-Wan.
you know it. So, mate, what have you been working on of late? What other interesting things have been coming through the place?
You know, I get lots of singles. You know, I had a hip hop single from South Texas the other day, and then I'll have, you know, I get a lot of country and Americana and blues and roots rock and jazz and you know, a lot of that kind of stuff, and lots of singles and EPs. I did get to do a few years ago. One of the coolest records I've worked on was the guy from the Ghetto Boys in Houston that just passed away. I got to do mastered a record for him, and it was all live musicians here in Austin. He was hanging out over at this trendy studio in Austin, and brought in all these great live musicians, and I had the pleasure to master that, and we didn't push it very hard. And I don't think it ever came out because it was so different that his people didn't know what to do with it. But that was definitely something unusual for me.
One of the things that always saddens me about my gig is that, I guess like you get to work with a plethora of amazing musicians and amazing songs, and you think to yourself, you know, these songs deserve to be hits. They deserve to be played on the radio, and you know, radio's always been a real bitch. It's just been a funnel. You know, there's only so much that they will allow on commercial radio these days, and I know we have more and more internet radio, but it saddens me to think that, you know, we have this embarrassment of riches of talent who are writing, you know, people writing great songs and doing beautiful productions out there, and a lot of it, unfortunately, will not really get to be heard by the masses. It's going to be a niche market, and it's become more of a lottery than ever. I think getting a #1 record on Billboard now, I think you got a greater chance of being hit by lightning twice.
Well, one of those compilations I mentioned for KUTX radio, they're an NPR affiliate. They're public, so they don't have to play by those commercial rules. You know,
yeah,
so they can spin whatever they want to spin. It keeps it really interesting that way.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're again here, public radio. We got a lot of great public radio stations. We've got 3 RRR, 3 PBS, 3 MBS that are great bastions of new talent. And yeah, we need more of that. Just the stations that are prepared to be mavericks and to just play good music for the sake of good music. And, you know, I know we've got internet stations and we've got bloggers and tastemakers, but, you know, I think we still need, you know, I mean,
Austin's kind of a radio town. I've got like 6 stations on my radio, and during drive time, I just go from one to the next to listen to what they're playing. And you know, one of them's like a classical station with no advertising, and then there's a country station, there's an Americana station, there's a pop station. I just go through the dial and just hear what's on the scene. So try to stay current with the
So is radio still as heavily formatted? I remember when I was over in the States, it was a very, very
Hmm.
defined, heavily formatted. It was CHR, AOR, MOR. There were very
Well,
distinct and defined genres and types of radio. And mate, I remember back in the day where guys were mastering for particular radio formats, if you know what I mean. Like one of the most
yeah.
great stories I remember, Glenn Meadows, when he did Shania Twain's, I think it was the Come On Over album.
I
Mike,
love that record.
Mike,
I
actually, I think
really do. I love
Mike,
that record.
yeah, Mike Shipley, rest in peace, Mike. I remember telling me that they cut 7 different sets of masters of that album for country
Right.
radio, for commercial hit radio, for AOR, for MOR.
Good for Glenn. Good for Glenn.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think those days are over right now. Hey, Joe, you're not gonna. No one's
Yeah,
gonna.
I agree.
No.
I agree. When Clear Channel started buying up stations, and then all the, a lot of them have the same playlists, and the DJ's not even in the room, and it's computer driven. That was a sad day to fatten somebody's wallet, I think.
Because
But there are pockets of little indie stations all over the place. There's a one in Houston, KPFT. They're an NPR affiliate, and they play whatever they want to play. And then KUTX here in Austin. And there's all, the little towns around that have the indie radio. And they'll play their local and regional peeps, and as well as what's on the charts.
and of course, college radio has been very strong in America over the years. Has broken many, many acts. It's a very healthy, situation over there too, right? With college radio.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, KUT is college radio here, University of Texas, and they have two channels. They've got the music channel KUTX, and they've got the KUT channel where they talk about politics or whatever the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And, but lots of good radio options still out there. And you can listen on the radio as well. You go to their website and click, and it'll tell you what the song is and the artist, and that's always nice to see.
I don't listen to a lot of radio myself these days. I tend to think that with streaming and at my fingertips now, I can just bang out the playlist I want to play and go with that. Although it is nice if you want to check out something new, because it is good to be able to go outside your boundaries, check out new stuff, see what's going on, see, particularly with the work we do as old farts that we are, Jerry, we still need to try and keep up with in pace with what's going on out there, just to be conversant with the trends.
You know what? I just discovered Billie Eilish, and I love her. She is amazing. She's so original and so doesn't care about what anybody thinks. And she was just here for the Austin City Limits Festival. I didn't get to talk to her, but I just discovered her. So I've been watching her videos, and I think this girl, she deserves everything she's getting. And she's only 17 years old. So did you master anything for her, for Billie Eilish?
No, mate. No, I'm not worthy.
Not yet. Not yet.
No, not even yet. Not even yet. Not even yet.
I did get to do one Adele track about 10 years ago when she was fresh.
Yeah. It's very satisfying though when you get to work with people from the ground level up. I've always found that working with bands that no one knows, and then they get to go somewhere that is, I find that more satisfying than getting to work with a band that are already established, if you know what I mean.
Very much. And I'll drop one more name, and that's it. And like Gary Clark Jr., the great blues rock guitar phenomenon, he could be the next guitar hero, but he's more interested in playing songs and music. But he was still in high school when I worked on his first CD about 20 years ago. And his mama and his dad came in and sat with me for a little while. And I had to tell him, I said, your son is exceptionally talented. He's not normal. He was playing B.B. King, Albert King, Freddie King, Stevie Vaughan, Jimmy Vaughan. He could play all that stuff when he was in high school. and he just kept getting better and better. But at some point he went, you know, I don't want to be the next guitar hero. I want to write songs and play music.
Mm-hmm.
And his career has continued to rise.
Yeah. I think it's so important for artists to just do what they want to do. I quite often get asked by people, do you think the station here in Australia that a lot of people want to get onto is Triple J? It's a national, supposed youth network. Okay, so Triple J. So Triple J seems to be in the eyes of people the Nirvana. If you can get on rotation there, then that is going to help you, especially when it comes to touring nationally and exposure, and understandably so. But what I keep telling these kids is, and I did a video about this years ago that went viral, Jerry, which is you got to be true to your art, because if you're trying to second guess what people want, then you're shutting off potentially other creative genius to come through, because you're very blinkered and way too focused, and you're going to start compromising and doing things that deep down in your soul you don't really want to do. It's not your expression. It's not your free expression. And so everything then becomes a compromise. And, people don't believe that they are unique within themselves. They are. They're unique expressions of life. They're unique expressions of art. And they need to stand out. It's one thing to try and be a part of something, fit in, that's recognizable, or something that people would know or appreciate, have a familiarity with, but you still need to have some kind of edge, and people will, blunt that edge down because they're too afraid to stand out, and too afraid about criticism or what people are going to think about them. And so they start doing things in accordance to the wishes of others, which is very counterproductive and definitely not creative.
You can I think you can apply that to audio production and mixing and mastering as well, where you're not exactly trying to copy what Bob Ludwig or Doug Sachs or Bernie Grundman did. Naturally, you're going to listen to those guys, but you're going to want to do your own thing in your own way and do what sounds right to you, musically and sonically.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we all have the same.
And I love those three guys, the big three,
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got the guys that are great, all these other guys. But, if you go back, and you could say Wally Troggett as well. He was working at Capitol for years, doing cutting the Beatles sides,
In fact, when I first saw Wally Troggett, I think he's passed away as well. Rest in peace, Wally.
Yeah, he did. He was a wonderful man.
The first time I saw a mastering credit as a kid, because growing up as a kid, I used to, I used to devour the credits on records on the albums I bought, and mastering was something that didn't often get featured back in the day. But the first time I ever saw a mastering credit was for Wally at Capitol, and it was for a Sammy Hagar album, right? So that's the first time I ever saw the word mastering.
That's
little did I know that I was going to end up being a mastering engineer as a result of that. But yeah, you talk about sorry.
When did you go that direction?
Well, I guess really, and mastering found me. It probably would have been around about 82. When I met a mastering engineer, just hanging out of the studio, just being a runner, and because I started off, I was a DJ and bought records. I was a vinyl collector, and I said I was a DJ. He said, "Oh, how'd you like?" He goes, "Oh, you're a DJ. How'd you like to know how to make your own vinyl records?" I said, "Well, how do you do that?" He said, "Well, I'm a mastering engineer. I cut lacquers." And so it started, and for me, the first thing that I saw in the mastering process was the speed of it, the fact that mixing could take days or weeks, tracking could take forever, and so I fell in love with the fact that it was fast, which meant that you got a turnover of jobs, which meant that if you got to sit on something that wasn't your cup of tea, it didn't really matter, because chances were the next record. And because I also loved the variety of music growing up, it was very appealing to me. And plus the fact that back then it was even more of a supposed black art. Not many people knew about it. And I didn't get into this to become a rock star. I mean, I wanted to be a producer and a mixer because that's all I knew, because that was all I saw on the album credits. So it just naturally, that's what I gravitated towards. Yeah. And seeing that everyone was knocking on the doors, of the mixing rooms and the tracking rooms, but mastering was one of those things that people didn't know about. It had absolutely no profile. No one knew what it was, especially back in the day. And I didn't care to be a rock star. I just wanted to get a job doing what I love to do. That was it. That was my motivation for getting involved in this, man, was just, I want to do a job I love doing from day to day because I'm going to spend nearly 50% of my waking hours working. So logic told me I better enjoy this work thing. So
So you apprenticed cutting lacquers.
yeah, well, and just, I didn't do a traditional internship like a lot of people did, man. I just watched and I learned, and I went to different studios and cobbled together what I learned, and then I just said, right, I'm going to start, and just got sound tools rig and started editing and did it from on a coffee table in a flat, and that was my start.
And all of that has brought us to this very moment.
Absolutely. That was 1991. So, and here we are. I still pinch myself and I think, shit, I still into the building and there's no eviction notice on the door and the lights still go on, as you can see. And, the toilet still flushes. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm still fucking making it, baby.
Yeah, man.
I'm a success.
Well, me too. Me too.
I mean, that's how I define it these days, man.
Couple of three really good months here since I moved the studio.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
And phone's been ringing and we're getting emails, and I'm very thankful and grateful for that.
So I know your boy who worked with you, Dick Landis, has gone on to, as a result, has now set up his own thing, and he's doing well for himself. I can see.
He's gone out on his own. I believe he's at his house. Down south of Austin a little ways, and Nick's doing great work, and he's a good guy, very scientific. I'm very musical oriented, and Nick is very scientific oriented. So,
but you're pretty scientific in your music.
The two of us worked really well together for many years, and I mentored him. And but if there was a science problem I couldn't work out, we could put our heads together and get there.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, that whole model of interning and kids staying around for years under your wing, and those days are well and truly gone. But which is cool. I tell all kids, I did a talk at Collards, which is a great audio school here in Melbourne.
Yeah, you were going to lay some science on them, right?
Yeah, man. Well, it's something I enjoy doing. It's a great passion of mine. I love talking to kids, love getting them through here. And, I keep telling them, the best way to get your foot in the door is to build your own door and put your own foot through it. And so freelancing is the way forward. And so now I think there's still room for
rather than complain that there aren't any jobs, create your own freaking job.
Well, it's, I think right now kids are living in the best time to get into audio. They run a story in their head that it's competitive and there's a lot of people out there, but you can still get started now with a small amount of money, and you can get yourself, compared to what we paid for a plug-in, that Waves Q10 10 band graphic equalizer and C1 compressor and L1. What was $1,000 back then on this for a little floppy disk? For what you can get now for the money.
And the neat thing was you got 4 installs on that floppy disk too.
And the access to people. When I started writing letters to studios, back in the late 80s, in the late 70s, pardon me. It was, I had to write a letter, and it had to go over there, and you didn't know how long it would take to arrive, and if they got to see it, and when they would respond, if in fact they responded. To make a phone call back then, mate, it was $20 for 3 minutes. And $20 is nearly a quarter of your week's wages. Back then. And now kids can get online in the palm of their hand. They can contact people on social media. For the most part, it is the person on social media is the actual person. So there's no, ringing a studio to the receptionist and then to the booking person and then to the assistant. There aren't as many gatekeepers in the way. So the accessibility to people now is amazing, as well as all the knowledge online and forums. It is the best time to be alive if you are wanting to get into audio and do your own thing. It's the greatest time in history to be doing it.
I love that. I love that. Agree. Yeah.
Yep.
And the other side of that is that everyone has that unlimited access almost. So
Yeah,
sometimes you have to find a way to stand out from the crowd, which has always been the case,
yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I think people worry too much about trying to stand out rather than just be themselves and be honest. Just
be
say,
themselves. Yeah.
just hey. I keep telling kids, I don't look, Jerry. One thing I don't do is I don't look at people's resumes. I know that in some places it's maybe part of the protocol of trying to get a job or work experience, but I just go on the feel of a kid, and it's
Yeah.
binary. It either feels right or it doesn't feel right. It's all about the way you approach somebody, and if you're honest and you're humble, and you don't need to
Very
say,
much. Yeah.
you don't need to say, listen, I'm going to be your bitch, and I will do 26 hours a day, 8 days a week. No need for that. No need for that. That's not a requirement. This, back in the day, maybe, interns did 15, 16 hours and for no money because there was 400 other people outside the front door who were prepared to sell their souls just to clean the toilets. But that doesn't exist anymore. So you can't put the fear in the kids about that sort of stuff. And just be
Right. Right.
yourself. Just it, the more
That's right.
honest and the more vulnerable you can be, even though you think that no one's going to want you, you'd be surprised. From me, at least, you're going to get a far more favorable response than anyone who's trying to bluster their way through with, I got a diploma, I got a degree. And a lot of these kids are way smarter than me, way smarter than me. But if you don't have the ability to get along with people and have good observation skills and situational awareness and empathy and humility, I don't give a fuck how good your hearing is. I don't know how many fucking Fletcher and curves you could tell me off by heart. It means dick in the scheme of things. It really does.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of empathy for people. You really do.
Ah,
And
I'm doing my best.
and you want to genuinely help people, and I think people sense that right away. So, and
Oh,
plus you're very charismatic and get people laughing and smiling right away. So,
no. Oh, thanks, Jerry.
yeah, my hat's off to you, my brother.
Thanks, bro. Coming for you.
Yeah.
It's great. Beautiful. I really appreciate it. And I love you too, brother. But I'm still a work in progress like anyone else. Still have my flaws. But I, Jerry, I was so fortunate as a young pup that I had some amazing people that were willing to open the doors for me and take me under their wing. And they helped me out a
Me
lot.
too. Me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not just in the studio, but outside the studio and in life stuff and what have you. And that always impressed upon me, and it never ceased to amaze me that the higher up the food chain you went in terms of the engineers that I've met, at least, irrespective of the fact that they all had their own individual personality types, they were all very grounded. They understood that they were who they were as people, not their job or their reputation. And were just incredibly humble. And so I thought, well, this is part of what, apart from the fact that they're great at their job, but the fact that they were grounded and they were helpful. And I said to myself, if I ever got to a situation where I built my own room and my own space, I do the same thing. And so now this is why I do what I do. It's my way of paying forward the goodness and the love that I got, Jerry, and the way I want to leave a legacy behind, more so than the records I did or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a people business, and I could go through and name like a timeline of mentors that have taken me under their wing, and
Who were they?
either like,
Tell us about some of these mentors and the experiences you had.
well, I can go all the way back to guitar people, but
Well,
there's some engineers here. There's some engineers here in Austin that I still work with that were mentors to me. A guy, Chet Himes, he did the Christopher Cross record, Sailing.
yeah.
He did that huge record 40
Mm-hmm.
years ago. And then a guy named Bill Johnson that I worked with. We've done 27 years of those KGSR compilations together, and many other guys, that we have these great relationships that are decades long. And they respect me and I respect them, and it's amazing. It's amazing. You know, I help them with things, they help me with things. So it's
What do you think was some of the best bits of advice you got from engineers growing up, Jerry, that held you in good stead?
well, always go for audio quality, the best audio quality possible.
Yeah.
You know, there's some factors there. Time and money are, you know, always the big two, and the people you're dealing with. Sometimes you're working with people, sometimes you're dealing with people.
I like that.
Yeah, and there are all those factors. You know, sometimes do you want to finish something, you know, quickly just to get it done and collect the money? No, you want to make sure it sounds as good as it possibly can within the deadline and the budget. And sometimes you have to push those two a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you got to push the deadline and the budget a little bit. And then occasionally you got to do something for free because it deserves it, or for a huge discount. You know, cut something in half. Say, here's what my normal price. This guy, I just finished a record recently with a great guitarist here, who I won't mention, and he's a working musician that's great talent. And I gave him the half off deal just because he deserved it, and he's such a wonderful man. He's like, okay, I'll do it. He asked me, and I said, okay, I'll do it.
People are surprised when I tell them that when you approach the people that you may want to work with that you think are out of your range, you might be surprised when if you approach them honestly and respectfully, you just don't know. You may capture their imagination, and they may turn around and say, and I've done the same thing myself, buddy. You know, sometimes it's kids in a high school band, and I mean, mum and dad are bankrolling it, but you know, I don't think it's necessarily fair on them. You want to support them, the fact that they're supporting their kids, you know, because I didn't have support as a kid from my parents, so you want to support them. Yeah, or the music is fucking amazing. You think, you know what, shit, I'd rather be doing this and, you know, earning a percentage of it than sitting here and twiddling my thumbs, because the music is so fucking amazing.
There we go. I just finished there's a really great charity organization here in Austin called HAM, HAAM, helping Austin area musicians with health issues. Like a friend of mine needed cataract surgery, and they paid for it. You know,
amazing. Awesome.
Well, I master their CD every year. This is 7th year, I think, running. I've mastered their 20-song CD for free to help that, you know, just because it's very deserving.
I think it's important.
So you got to give back once in a while.
Totally, man. Yeah, it's all growth and contribution. I mean, it's the laws of nature, and that's how it works. And I think in our field, especially us older cats, we have a duty to provide that, because you know, we have, at times we do have the excess resources. We do have the available time and the want to do it, and it's very rewarding, you know, to do those kind of things in time to time, whether it's a charity, or whether it's a young kid, or whether it's just a band who are just absolutely amazing and they're just short a coin, you know, whatever it takes to you know, to help them get that thing over the line. There's a great deal of fulfillment to be had and experienced.
It feels good. It feels really good. You can't do that all the time. You can only do that every now and, you know, because you've got your you know, you gotta propagate your lifestyle. Lifestyles of the rich and famous, you know.
Well, this is why I tell people, if you're going to do something or give something, make sure you give it from your overflow. It's like a good gambler. I mean, that's a bit of an oxymoron, but again, the responsible gamblers are the ones who will only gamble with what they can afford to lose. They're not going to go to the casino or to a craps table and walk away being short on the rent. You know, at the end of the day, they're going to have food in their belly, the rent's paid, they got gas in the car, and that $50 they had was excess, and they're not going to worry too much about it. So, so if you're going to be doing anything that's going to cause resentment, you know, and this is where benevolence can sometimes turn into self-righteousness. So if you find yourself doing something for someone and then you're getting pissed off about it, check yourself and think about why you did it in the first place, and you probably deserve to have that feeling. You
Sure.
did it wrong. You did it for the wrong reason in the first place. You shouldn't have done it in the first place.
There you go.
That's my take on it, Jerry. So listen, over the years, you and I have been on our own respective journeys, trying to grow and mature and evolve and be better human beings. And I remember that we've had some pretty interesting and deep conversations around, whether it was meditation, spirituality, mindfulness. So you also released a lot of weight yourself. You used to be a much heartier looking fellow back in the day.
Yeah.
So
I was over 300 pounds, and I did the paleo for a couple of years. And lost 100 pounds.
That's awesome.
Now I'm just trying to control the backslide. Just trying to slow down the backslide now.
How old are you now, Jerry? If it's okay to ask.
What?
How old are you now, my friend?
How old?
Yeah, is that okay to ask you?
Oh, of course. I'll be 65 next year.
Damn, son. Look at
64. You. Oh, I got to do the Beatles when I'm 64 this year.
Look at you. You're a peach. No, you're looking good, man. No, you are.
Well, I'm still trying to hike. I did 8 miles last weekend. 3 years ago, this month, I did 21 miles in one day. I was really fit there for a few years, and I was hiking a lot, but it was taking too much time away from everything else.
Yeah.
And then I got back into my guitar playing, started playing guitar, and that was taking a lot of time, but it felt so freaking good. But hiking and playing guitar felt so freaking good. It was so satisfying. But I always love the work. I'm in mastering because I love music and I love people, and most of the people I get to work with are very groovy. And we connect.
I haven't heard that word for a while.
Well, that's my generation.
I love it. Hey, listen, things go in cycles, my friend. What is old may become new again,
Oh yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
It's
a lot of the 70s and 80s sensibilities with music are coming back around.
Yeah, most definitely. I think there's a lot to be said about as we age. I like to think of myself as aging disgracefully, but a big part of living well as you get older and being at your optimum is doing the stuff you love and still being active, and whether it's going on a hike or going to the gym or taking a walk or playing guitar, cooking, indulging in something that you love to do. And especially if you can find that in your work, if you can spend most of your waking hours doing what you love, it's that's going to be better than any plastic surgery.
Check your tones every now and then.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can still hear 10K.
I haven't checked my hearing for a long time, man. I
just do it in the studio, and if 10K still hurts, you're in good shape.
You're in good shape. The thing is too, man, your brain is an amazing machine and knows how to compensate for things that what you think you can't actually hear or perceive as hearing. So this is why guys like Bob Ludwig, who in the 70s are still, making amazing masters and are still relevant. And, I mean, that guy, I think they'll probably carry him out in a coffin from Gateway.
I got to do one seminar with Bob back in 2005. And he was so nice and generous, to me. And he let me speak as much as I wanted to. And it was a real honor it was a South by Southwest panel. Mm-hmm. I did a bunch of those back in the 90s. Now they bring in all these young guys, but it was fun doing that panel with Bob. It was just he and I.
Beautiful. So, that would have been fun.
He's very friendly and not pretentious at all.
No, that's
just down there.
I found it too. He was he had a huge impact on me. Meeting him and getting to sit in the studio and watch him work, and he gave me some great words of encouragement. And he didn't have to say the things he said to me. I generally believed him. And as a young kid, when you have a lot of self-doubt and you don't know whether you're doing the right thing, and someone that you look up to and you respect is actually giving you some props, and you're feeling it as a genuine I mean, at the end of the day, that's what kids want, man. They just want someone to believe in them, to genuinely believe in them and to feel that. And when they get that from you, and kids today have the greatest bullshit meters of all time. So you can't bullshit a bullshitter in that department. But when they're feeling you, man, honestly, that people can underestimate the importance of a kind word and a kind gesture that's done from the heart and done with great authenticity, because one degree off separation, man, that sets them off over time. If you understand your trigonometry over the journey, that's going to cover some wide ass ground. And you could potentially, that could have been the pivotal point in some kid's life that averted him from potentially maybe committing suicide. I don't know, but it sets him on the right path. And you may never see that or know about that, but know that potential's there. So the fact that you know that is a potentiality, why wouldn't you want to do a kindness to a young kid and help them out, especially if you're being sincere about it? Yeah.
One thing I wanted to, observing Bob Ludwig on how observing him listen. How does he do his critical listening? What's he listening for? That would be a fascinating learning experience, watching Bob, how he listens.
Well, I think
watching the turn the knobs and do this and that and session workflow, but just observing how does he listen and what's he listening for?
What do you?
I bet that was quite an eye opener for you.
Yeah, look, I remember Bob said to me some great advice, and he said the two qualities you need to be a great mastering engineer is to have personal empathy and musical empathy, in that order. So when you can connect to the artist and get them and feel them, and you understand the music, and it's that whole thing of, this is why I said the best way I've been able to define this role, Jerry, I said a million times, and I'll repeat it again, and I don't think I can find a better one for me, at least, which is, well, the role of the mastering engineer is to facilitate a process to help an artist or a band realize their vision for their art. So, to be able to listen to something and go, okay, I can see the promised land. I know where we need to go. And then have the tools to be able to add or take away whatever you need to do to get to that point, to be that bridge, that conduit, if you will,
Yeah.
And still leaving yourself open perhaps for maybe some little tangent, some little accident that may be an unexpected surprise. But at least in the beginning, you just kind of know, and no one needs to hold your hand and tell you, well, we want some of this and we need some of that. And it's good to get a brief and input, but I think there is that knowing that you got to have. And that's something you develop over time.
Yeah, if you get it with the artist. Yeah. But another thing I try to remember is that these moves I'm doing with EQ or compression or whatever are going to be part of the historical record, permanent historical record, long after we're all dead and gone.
For sure.
That music is it's still going to exist somewhere. Somebody's still going to listen to it. And then they might actually read the credits and go, okay, who produced this? Who mixed it? Who mastered it? Whatever. Yeah. And so we're leaving something for the future as well.
Yeah.
I get satisfaction out of that.
I agree. The gift that keeps on giving. How many times have you and I heard records from engineers past and still puts a smile on our face and conjures up memories, and it's a good time. It's still a good time.
It is a good time. I'm still getting new young people calling us up, said I heard this record, or somebody told me to call you, and it's great. Especially when you build a new relationship with somebody fresh and new, and you get that trust. They trust you. You get their music, and you can help. You can help them with their music and hopefully their career as well. It's a good
most definitely. I mean, some of my best and most enduring friendships to this day are people that started off as clients in my world, and in some cases these people don't do music anymore, but they're still my friends, and we've become very close over the years, to the point of going to their kids' birthday parties and weddings and sadly funerals as well. But but
Oh, yeah.
the connection still goes on. And I think speaking of funerals, one of the sad things for us is as we get older, my friend, one of the realities of life is more and more of our colleagues are going to, drop off the twig. And I was saddened today to hear the news of Ed Cherney. May he rest in
Yeah.
peace. That he had a battle with cancer, and he was a guy that I wanted to get on the podcast, and we tried and tried, but unfortunately, I think he obviously wasn't doing well with his health, and but that guy, talk about legacy. That guy, he left one, hadn't he? Jesus Christ. Amazing legacy.
Truly.
And it's wonderful to see all the people paying homage to him, and it's nice to be remembered, and to be remembered as a good person, that you've done good things to the world, and people remember you with fondness, and that's the thing that keeps that lives on in people's minds and memories. Sometimes generations up to generations, and if you can do that, if you can make that impact, then you've done something pretty good with your life, I reckon.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's really a people business. Yes, the music is incredibly important, and after all the people are gone, the music will still exist. But it's all about people and relationships. It's definitely not about the money.
Especially now. I don't think I remember when I first wanted to get Deluxe off the ground in the initial stages, when my accountant saw how much it was going to cost me to build this place. He said, "You realize you're buying enough materials here, you could build yourself a couple of little units, townhouses, a duplex, and you could build that, and you can get some rent every month, and you can sit pretty." And so that's not what I want to do. I don't want my job to be 2 minutes a month going to letterbox and getting a monthly check, from two tenants. And you don't get it, man. You don't get it. And people don't understand. There's no rhyme or reason in what we do, man. It's again, what's that old worn saying? The best way to make $1 million in the music industry is to start off with 5 million.
And work your way down. Well, there is some truth to that, but it's a journey, not a destination. How about that?
Absolutely. So true. And I think as time goes on and through the changes over the years, the one constant that will always remain and will remain in the future, long after we're gone, Jerry, is there will always be challenges and opportunity. And it's those who are able to have a look at what's going on and make some kind of order out of the chaos, and be creative and find ways to connect the dots in ways that other people can't see, even though it's right under their nose, and make it work, and then become, start a new trend and a new way of doing things. And then, because people, man, we are creators by nature. We have an innate need to create in our DNA. And while there'll be some girl with a hairbrush singing in the mirror, or some kid with a broom thinking he's the next Angus Young. And while we have people wanting to make music, there will need to be an industry and supporting industries around it to support this beautiful thing called music.
Man, there's nothing like it. I think we're called to music. When we're kids, I remember spinning my brother's 45s. He had this great collection of 50s rock and roll 45s, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Elvis, Buddy Holly, all those guys. And I used to sit for hours and hours and spin those records over and over. And one day I went, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then the Beatles and the Stones hit, and that was like, I was a goner after that.
Yeah.
It was like, and Jimi Hendrix. And then I went, okay, I'm going to be the next Jimi Hendrix. And of course, we didn't need another Jimi Hendrix,
Well, we got at
the same time, I got my first tape recorder. My brother sealed my fate by giving me my first tape recorder about 1965. It was a little mono half-track airline tube tape recorder that I still have.
Damn.
And the rectifier tube fell out and broke, and it's not worth fixing, but I still got it. And I think about, all the years I spent, playing with tape recorders, and I still got tape recorders, I still play with tape recorders all the time.
That's
I was
awesome.
tweaking on this one today,
Yeah.
because I've got some tapes from the 60s to transfer tomorrow and the day after. Historically significant tapes, you know, for an artist.
Yeah.
So I'm still playing with tape recorders.
Terra Nova could become like the Smithsonian Institute of Audio, the way you're going, my friend.
I love you, man.
I love you, boy, Jerry. Hey, buddy, we're gonna have to wind it up because I just got a text message that the engineer wants to come in and do a session, so I've got to better let him come in and make some money, so we can keep the lights on and keep the eviction notices off the door.
I hear you.
Love you dearly, brother. You're awesome. It's been
you too, man, and
it's
I can't thank you enough for inviting me to spend this time with you.
No, man, you're one of the good guys, and you're the real deal. And you've been doing it for a long time, and I think you had a lot of pearls of wisdom that hopefully some of the other guys who are starting, and gals, you know, who are starting out and want to get their foot in the door,
I hope so.
we'll get from you, because that's our job now, man. We're here to, you know, keep doing what we're doing, but to pass the torch and pass knowledge and help give these kids, you know, a hand up and some support so that we can, you know, keep this industry going. And so that's it. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, man. It's a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it so much. All right.
We'll talk to you soon, Jerry.
I certainly hope so. Love you, man.
Love you too, brother. Take care. All right. And that is it. Jerry Tubb, Terra Nova Mastering, into his 30th anniversary. What a sweetheart. It's always a pleasure talking to Jerry. Always is. Got so much time for the man. Well, I'm out of here, people. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube or listening on iTunes or SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe. We love your feedback. We love your support. And I'm out of here. And as I always say, please be nice to each other. But more importantly, be nice to yourselves. I love you, fuckers. We'll catch you on the flip side. Okay. See you guys.